Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Deuteronomy chapter 20 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're going to dive right into a complete, chronological walkthrough of this really fascinating text. Whether you're a longtime student of these ancient writings or you're encountering them for the very first time, this explainer is designed to systematically unpack the ancient rules of war, exactly as they're written in the text. So, how exactly did ancient Israel wage war? To figure out their military protocols, we're looking directly at the text to find the who, what, where, and why. I mean, how did a nation in the ancient Near East organize its troops when facing a massive threat? What were their specific rules of engagement? Who got drafted? And who was legally allowed to just stay home? By answering this core question, we get a direct window into the values, the fears, and the incredibly strict administrative rules of ancient Israel right on the brink of battle.
Now, before we get into the verse-by-verse, let's set a quick ground rule. We are sticking strictly to the Peshat approach today. What does that mean? Well, Peshat is just the plain, literal, direct meaning of a biblical text. We aren't going to go down any deep symbolic tangents, look for hidden mystical meanings, or untangle complex allegories. We're just going to read what the text actually says, clarify the core Hebrew concepts in simple English, and follow the instructions exactly as the ancient Israelites would have heard them on the plains of Moab.
All right, here is our agenda for today. We have 6 main stops. Number 1, context and pre-battle faith. Number 2, the 4 exemptions from war. Number 3, distant cities and plunder. Number 4, nearby cities and idolatry. Number 5, sparing the fruit trees. And finally, number 6, practical lessons and recap. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Context and pre-battle faith, facing the chariots.
Okay, so imagine standing on the edge of a battlefield in the ancient world. The stakes are absolute, and the tension is literally through the roof. Verse 1 paints this super daunting picture right out of the gate. It says, "When you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and an army greater than yours, do not be afraid of them." So the troops are marching out and they're staring down a massive, technologically advanced force. In the ancient world, chariots and horses were the ultimate military advantage. It's kind of the equivalent of facing heavy armored tanks when all you have is lightly armed infantry. But the verse immediately counters this terrifying sight with a reminder of exactly who is with them, the God who brought them up out of the land of Egypt.
But right before the actual clash begins, verses 2 through 4 tell us that the spiritual leader steps forward. The Kohen, the priest, addresses the army directly to deliver a massive motivational speech. He proclaims, "Hear, O Israel, today you are going into battle against your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted or afraid. Do not be terrified or give way to panic before them." You see, the Kohen's job here is entirely spiritual and psychological. He's reminding the soldiers that they are not fighting alone. The God of Israel goes with them, to fight for them, giving them victory against what seem like impossible odds.
Moving to Section 2, 4 exemptions from war. Who goes home?
So, after the priest's pep talk, the military officers, known in ancient Hebrew as the shoterim, take over with some very practical administration. They're standing in front of the gathered army, about to thin out the ranks by sending certain people packing. According to verses 5 through 8, if a soldier falls into any of 4 specific categories, they are officially exempt from the draft and ordered to return home immediately. First up, did you build a new house and haven't dedicated it? If so, go home, lest you die in battle and another man dedicates it. Second, did you plant a vineyard but haven't begun to enjoy its fruit? You go home too. Third, are you betrothed to a woman but not yet married? You're dismissed. Go get married. These first 3 exemptions show a really profound respect for the milestones of normal human life. Home, livelihood, and family are prioritized. But the 4th exemption? That one is a little different. The shoterim ask, "Is any man afraid or faint-hearted?"
And the reasoning behind that 4th exemption provides some honestly fascinating psychological insight. Verse 8 says the fearful man must go home, lest his brethren's heart melt as his heart. You see, the ancient commanders understood perfectly that panic is highly contagious. Just one terrified soldier could completely tank the morale of the entire unit. For them, it was way better to have a smaller, thoroughly courageous army than a massive one that was infected with paralyzing fear. Once those men are sent home, verse 9 tells us that commanders are finally appointed to lead the remaining troops forward.
All right, Section 3, distant cities and plunder, rules of engagement. Now that the army is officially organized and the commanders are set, verses 10 through 15 lay out the specific rules of engagement for attacking foreign cities that are located far away, cities outside the immediate borders of their promised inheritance. The very first required step, according to verse 10, is to march up to the city and proclaim an offer of peace. If the city accepts this offer and voluntarily opens its gates, there's no bloodshed. Instead, all the people in that city become tributary to Israel. They are subject to forced labor. However, if that distant city refuses the peace offer and chooses to fight, the instruction is uncompromising. The army is to lay siege to the city.
And reading the text impartially, verses 13 through 15 dictate the really grim reality of ancient warfare. If that distant city refuses peace and subsequently falls to the siege, the literal command is to smite every adult male with the edge of the sword. The women, the little ones, the cattle, and all the spoil inside the city are to be taken as plunder. The troops are explicitly permitted to use and eat this spoil. But the text specifically notes in verse 15 that this protocol applies strictly to the cities that are very far off from thee.
That brings us to Section 4, Nearby Cities and Idolatry, Total Destruction.
As we hit verses 16 through 18, the rules of war shift dramatically for the local cities located inside the lands Israel was designated to inherit. This brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast in military protocol. While distant cities got an offer of peace, and women, children, and property were spared as plunder, the nearby cities faced a totally different fate. For these local nations, verse 16 is completely explicit. Thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. They were marked for complete and total annihilation. There was no offer of peace and absolutely no taking of captives.
And verse 17 leaves zero ambiguity about who this applies to. It gives a concrete list of the 6 specific local nations that must completely wipe out: the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The command is to completely destroy them, just as the Lord their God commanded.
So, the crucial question is why? We have to understand the reasoning behind this command. Verse 18 gives us the internal logic. This concept of total devotion to destruction is known in ancient Hebrew as cherem. The ancient text justifies this incredibly harsh decree by stating it is literally the only way to prevent these nations from teaching Israel to follow all the detestable things they do in worshiping their gods. Basically, if these nations stuck around, the text argues, Israel would learn their abominations and sin against their own God. So this total destruction was framed as a drastic, absolute quarantine against idolatry.
Section 5, Sparing the Fruit Trees, Ecological Warfare. Moving into the final verses of the chapter, 19 and 20, we find a highly specific and honestly pretty beautiful rule about the environment during combat. When an army lays siege to a city for a long time, they need immense amounts of wood to build fortifications and battering rams. But verse 19 strictly forbids the troops from taking an axe to fruit-bearing trees. The text poetically reminds the soldiers, "Are the trees of the field people that you should besiege them?" Essentially, the trees are not the enemy. You can eat their fruit, so you must not cut them down. Even in the destructive chaos of a prolonged war, the text demands that life-sustaining resources be aggressively protected.
Verse 20 clears up the practical application of this rule. Soldiers are only permitted to harvest timber from trees they know for a fact do not produce food. They can use these non-fruit trees to construct their bulwarks, which are defensive walls and siege equipment, until the enemy city falls. It's a remarkable ancient law that prioritizes future civilian life and ecological preservation over immediate military convenience.
And finally, Section 6, Practical Lessons and Recap. Okay, so having completed our step-by-step walkthrough of the literal text of Deuteronomy chapter 20, let's extract some actionable insights and recap what we've learned. Even though we're looking at a literal military manual from the ancient Near East, the underlying human principles still resonate deeply today. First, we saw the instruction to send the fearful home. In modern life, we can learn a lot about the importance of acknowledging our own anxieties and isolating contagious fear before it derails our teams or families. Second, the text established crystal-clear rules of engagement before the fighting even started. Similarly, we benefit big time from setting clear boundaries and protocols before we enter into arguments or conflicts. And third, that rule about the fruit trees, it teaches us to always prioritize and protect our vital, life-sustaining resources, ensuring we don't destroy our own future just because of a desire to win right now in the present.
So, as you reflect on this explainer, consider this. How do these ancient concepts of self-awareness and preservation help you navigate the conflicts in your own world? How can you protect your own fruit trees when you're feeling under pressure? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.